Today's episode marks the 10th episode of The Story Truck, and we couldn't have gone that far without your support. We have a very special guest today. Her name is Amita Deshpande, a social entrepreneur and the founder of Recharka EcoSocial, an organization that upcycles plastic waste into fabric while employing rural artisans and providing them with livelihood. Her story is inspiring and her journey is mind blowing. Please stay tuned as we dwell into Amita's story. My first question is regarding your childhood because since I was a kid, I had this stubborn attitude towards plastic waste on the road, and I knew that in the future, if my career is not exactly related to that, I want to do something to contribute to society. So, was there any influence like that while you were growing up?
Definitely. And, I was very much like that as well when I was a child. And I grew up in Silvassa. That's a little town in Dadra Nagar Haveli, Union Territory. And because it's a small place, we didn't have so much of population. And obviously, as a result, the waste wasn't seen as much as you would do in a city. So whenever I used to travel to, say, Mumbai or Pune, I used to come across waste. And even, while traveling in trains or in on the streets, I always used to find waste. And I used to keep wondering, why can't it just be clean? Because I had traveled abroad also, and you see the stark difference in why is it so. Slowly, I started understanding, especially when we were in school, and I think in the eighth grade or something, there was a topic, there was a subject about waste, and then there was biodegradable waste and non-biodegradable waste. And non-biodegradable waste is plastic, glass, and thermocol and all that. And then I used to wonder, if this waste is not degradable, why are we using these things and why are we creating that waste? And this question came to me. Not everybody around me or in my classroom actually thought about it. And in that same grade itself, there was a science seminar. As a result of that, people started understanding that this girl always talks about waste and she loves waste. And started it was a small place, like a small society. So whichever shop I used to go to, I used to say, Bhaiya, nahi, plastic bag mat do. And that was the time when people had started taking to plastic. When I was really a kid, maybe old, I always remember we used to carry a cloth bag with us. But later on, polythene bag had started becoming like a fashion, and everybody who went to the grocery store used to look for a polythene bag. It's always kept on as a parallel thing, a parallel fashion, where I kept telling people, don't use plastic, don't use thermocol, don't use disposables. I personally stopped as much as possible. So I was always, even today, a lot of my school friends remember that what how I used to be, and now that I'm doing this work, people can relate to it very easily.
So, you had a career in IT, if I'm not mistaken, and then you switched completely. So, was there some awakening call that you had, or why that sudden change?
I always wanted to spend as much time as possible in the environment. Even as a kid in Silvassa, we used to go into the neighborhood, nature, in the forests around, and we had a very close family friend of ours who was a forest officer. So he used to take us into the forest, and we used to have little picnics there. That's what all my friends went in. I also went and started doing my BE, and after that I got a job. While I was working in the company, I was in KPIT Cummins in Pune. That's when I got introduced to a concept called CSR, corporate social responsibility. That team was a team of bunch of volunteers who had their own day jobs to do, but apart from that, they uh, also conducted all these activities, which were CSR activities. So as a part of that, I got a good free hand to implement all my, activities that I had in my head. So, we banned plastic, we banned plastic cups and mugs, and then we conducted some cleaning drives in the company itself. At that time, I also started doing a lot of treks in the Sahyadris, Pune and Mumbai, around our mountains. So during the treks also, I started realizing that there's so much of waste in the mountains. So in the city, there's somebody to clean it, but in the mountains, there's nobody going to go and clean it. So I always used to carry a bag with me to put waste in it. But then I again started realizing that I'm the only one who's doing it. Even my friends who were with me always, some of them obviously supported, but some of them just laughed. That's how I started understanding this is what I really want to do. This is what I want to do majority of my life, and not sit in front of a laptop and do code. I decided to do my master's in business from the Cranard School of Management, Purdue University. But I took up some subjects because the university didn't offer specific courses in this field. I took up some courses as my major for the final semester. And that was in CSR and sustainability. So
Okay.
that's where my actual shift happened.
So you shifted and then you formed Arohana, right? So could you brief our viewers a bit about that?
Yeah, so the story of starting of Arohana was also really a very interesting one. So when I moved back to India from the US, I always had that in my mind that I want to work in the field of sustainability, but for the also for the social aspect. So I wanted to combine the environment and the social aspect. And most of the CSR folks are about the society. Some are for the environment, majority are for society. So I wanted to combine that. And I was a CSR consultant at that point in time. So I was exploring, and I was reading a lot. So yesterday also we had a very interesting session with Rashmi Bansal, who's my one of a very good authors. So I had read her book about social entrepreneurship and things like that, and I kept exploring what I wanted to do. And I had decided to take a break from my job. I was working in a company in Bombay that time. I decided to take up a break and travel into the mountains, into the Himalayas. And while I was in the mountains, that was the duration when the Kedarnath disaster happened. And I was on the other side of the mountains of Kedarnath, where a lot of landslides happened. So not a lot of lives were lost, but a lot of property loss had happened at it. Me and a friend of mine who was with me at that time, we thought to ourselves, because we were stuck. We had nothing to do for 4 or 5 days, no electricity, no water. Food was also very limited with us. We were in a town, but all these problems were there. So we kept thinking as to, how can we really get into this and do this full time? And that's when we decided that, that's it. Let's quit our jobs. He was an intern in my company, a French guy actually, Simo. And we both decided that, we'll quit our jobs and we'll volunteer for some time. So we really did that, and we quit our job. We decided to volunteer for an NGO in Uttarakhand, in that environment, to understand what it really is, what this NGO world is, or what the social sector is. And that while I was in Uttarakhand, I founded Arohana. So that was, the turning point, the happened in Uttarakhand and Himachal. That was the turning point when I actually jumped into it full time.
So after Arohana came Recharkha, right? And what was that organization's story? I'm interested.
Sure. So Arohana, we had to shut it down very recently during the lockdown, or just after the lockdown. There were a lot of changes in the team that had happened. And as a result, and of course, the lockdown and the pandemic situation worsened it. And we had to shut down the company in August this year. And then to take care of the rest of the team, because we had 15 tribals working with us, and a few of the tailors here and the artisans. So we had a team of good 25 people. So to take care of them, I decided I'll continue with, and just change the name. So the work remains the same, the name changes, people are the same.
Okay. And could you lay emphasis on the name?
Yes,
Recharkha.
totally. Yes. So see, so when we started Arohana, we didn't have it in our minds at that time that we want to do this, or we were going to work in the upcycling and handcrafting space. Arohana was more of a consultancy. But the name Arohana was not known to many people. People didn't understand the meaning, and it didn't immediately relate to the product. So I wanted to have a name which actually, the product talks about it. So one of our primary equipment that we use is charkha in the upcycling process. And charkha symbolizes a lot of things. Charkha stands for Swadesi movement. And, during this lockdown period, again, we had all started thinking about vocal for local, Swadesi. Was really standing out. And, charkha at that point in time during the freedom struggle or the pre-freedom movement, it played a very important role. It was trying to solve a problem at that time. Today, we are using the charkha to solve the current world's problem. And the current world's problem for us right now is plastic waste. So that's why we decided recharkha. So it's revival of the charkha to solve current world's problems. Hence, it's recharkha. Some people call it rechakra by mistake. Charkha is actually sort of the symbol for craft, symbol for handicraft. So we decided to keep it recharkha. So it's recycling also,
Right. So how did you come across these tribal artisans and employ them? And what was your approach towards them?
See, they were not artisans when we met them. So I wanted to start this program in such a place where there was no other source of livelihood. There was farming, and unfortunately, in tribal areas, they have very little farmland for themselves. As you see in other places in Maharashtra and plains and all, you have people have acres and acres of land, but tribals have very little land, and they can grow only food for themselves. They typically don't grow food to sell. So that's called subsistence farming. Being brought up in Silvassa, I was very closely associated with the tribals there. So we had a little place close to Silvassa, which my family owns, and the people around there, when they got to know that this is what we do, one of the young boys' father actually approached us that Kiran wants to work with you, and that's when we decided to set up our unit near his house in the tribal village, and that's how it all started. So these people didn't actually, they're not artisans, they were not artisans, now they are. So we taught them the craft. It was very
They were
interesting
trained in
process.
the process.
Yeah. So one Kiran joined and Vandana joined, and so and so 12 people. There are more people who want to work with us. We just don't have the work right now to hire so many people, but eventually I think we want to grow more in that same village first and then move out to another place. We also started an NGO very recently. It's called My Eco-Social Planet. Yeah, so there we are doing a lot of these awareness activities. We want to do more, and we want more people to join us in that.
So since you've spoken about your NGO, if anyone's listening to this podcast right now and they want to join it, could you just
Yeah,
brief them a little bit about the procedure and what exactly it is about and how we can help?
sure. That's excellent. We've been, a lot of people are asking us, how can we join you? We don't have a formal procedure as such right now. But I always say, if there is anybody who wants to join our work and become our eco-social buddy, just raise your hand and start working in the community where you are. So, for example, there's one person called Smita who runs an organization called 5 Hour Cycle, who's in Mumbai, who's a Mumbai-based person. So she herself has started collecting waste for us through her own sources. So once that happens, that waste will automatically come for upcycling, and instead of going into, say, the landfill or the oceans, or possibly into recycling, is better than recycling. So
So,
that can be done. Awareness generation can be done.
right. So in your society or something, organize a campaign, collect the plastic, and then transport it over
Correct.
to your
Correct.
center.
Correct. And see, before even doing that, there's an important aspect that the volunteer should remember, is that we are not promoting the use of plastic, and we are not promoting the upcycling or recycling of plastic. What we are doing is, we want people to first understand that they must refuse, reduce, reuse whatever plastic is available, only then send it for recycling. Otherwise, it will totally, be in the opposite. So that's why we want to train these people who want to volunteer for us, and then they can take up this cause. And as a result, the products that are made by the upcycling, they can always talk about our products and help us promote them, because only we are working only through the sales of our products. So our tribals and our artisans will get paid only by the sale of products. So that's why we want to always emphasize that if wherever possible, anyways, if you're going to go and buy a bag from the market, or you're going to go buy a laptop bag, so then choose this as an alternative. That's the story.
So why upcycling and not recycling? A few of our viewers had this question.
Upcycling, the whole idea of upcycling is making something better than what it was before. So we upcycle this. Okay. So this was something which you were going to use only for 1 or 2, 3, 4 times maybe, and a few minutes overall. But when it gets converted into a bag like this, you're going to use this for several years. So that's what upcycling is, and you're increasing its value also by upcycling. So 50 wrappers make one bag. So it's actually also, enhancing its value. Hence upcycling. And the process of upcycling that we employ is also very eco-friendly. It's manual. We don't need any electricity or chemicals or heat. Whereas recycling in itself is melting of plastic, then drawing threads from it, and then making something from it. So it's an energy intensive process. Also, it could release carcinogens in the environment. It's not bad. Definitely better than throwing the plastic away. But
Right. So
upcycling is better.
upcycling is more environment friendly than recycling.
Not always. The way we do it, it's environmentally friendly. Upcycling might not necessarily be eco-friendly. People need to really think about it that way though. Whoever are upcycling should think about the way they're upcycling it so that they're not harming the environment further.
So these plastics bags that you just showed, so what's the process that goes into making it into that beautiful purse?
Sure, sure. So see, this is all the waste that we use, okay? So these are your carry bags, which are ideally banned but are still in use, very thin and, clumsy ones. Then packets. So this is a bread packet, for example, or it's a multi-layered wrapper of your biscuits, kurkure, which has a silver lining from inside. So these materials specifically are not even recyclable because they are multi-layered. It has a different layer of plastic inside, aluminium inside, and outside is plastic. So it's difficult to recycle further. This could get recycled only if it gets collected. But so anyways, your question is how do I upcycle this? So we collect all these kind of, so to make a bag like that, about say this bag, this is our Jhola tote. So to make a Jhola tote of this size, I need about 40 plastic bags. Okay. So I have to collect 40 of these plastic bags or wrappers because that also has gift wrappers in it. We use just a pair of scissors and manually cut them. Okay. Then manually, just using scissors. We don't use shredders and all that. So people are employed to do that. That's the whole idea. We don't want to use machines wherever it's not needed. And then we use the charkha. So that's where our charkha comes into the picture. And charkha is a hand machine. It's a hand spinning machine. It doesn't need electricity. And a hand loom. Hand loom is what actually makes the fabric. So this entire process of making fabric is totally without electricity, without any heat or chemicals. So once that happens, this fabric is created. So if you look very closely, that's how the fabric looks like. Or if you can, maybe this one is a better one to show. If you look closely, it has all kinds of wrappers. You have a Maggi wrapper and you have a biscuit wrapper and all kinds of wrappers. So that's what it gets converted into. This one has a tied packet. See? So after the fabric is made, then it comes to a Pune office. And in Pune, we have tailors who make these beautiful products. So they are very skilled tailors who make all these products. So that's how our process typically goes.
Wow, that's so good. So, do you see people making a conscious effort while buying products, or will, in the case of India, or will it take a lot of time for this change to take place? What is your view?
Because see, there has been a change, definitely. From when I started this journey till now, I can definitely say that there are a lot of people who have changed their habits. The problem is that people in India specifically, so abroad it is very different, because people always had the mindset of using a dustbin for everything. Okay. But once it goes to a dustbin, it's going to go to either a landfill or a recycler, and people are not bothered about that process. Their house is clean, their neighborhood is clean, their landfills are also very clean because they're nicely covered up with nice grass and all that, so you'll never know that there's waste under like that. The thing with India and people here, we've always used recycled products since long time back. So eat a banana, the peel, even if we throw it away, it's going to get composted. So people have got that in their mind that no matter, even if I throw a peel, the cow is going to eat it or the dog is going to eat it. But when that shift happened from banana to a wafer packet or a wafer, because that's what is happening. If you go in villages also, you will unfortunately see that instead of opting for a banana of 2 rupees, 3 rupees, a person will go and get 5 rupees ka biscuit and eat it, and then the wrapper is thrown away.
Actually, as a kid, whenever I used to go to my hometown or my village, and I used to see these dogs and cows just eat plastic wrappers which were thrown throughout the roads, and I used to feel so bad because you just, if you're eating, okay, fine, but then throw it in a dustbin. There are dustbins provided. They just throw it on the road. So that was my awakening call that I will do something, if not now, in the future.
Yeah. And see, unfortunately, even if there is a dustbin, we don't have the system from that dustbin where it's going to go. It's typically it'll go. It's so nowadays it's going to the right places. So most of the places where segregation is happening properly, it is going to recyclers. But in villages and in small towns, it's not possible. There is no recycling center over there. So it's all going. So, the worst part, if in Pune, we are now recently working in the IT park of Pune, Hinjewadi, right? It's a big IT park. You go there and you see everything is like chaka chak. And there are big buildings and nice societies. Where is all that waste going? You won't believe it. There's hills around Hinjewadi. It's going and getting dumped under a hill because Hinjewadi is still a gram panchayat. It's not a municipality. So municipalities own landfills. Of course, municipality owned landfills are also located in some gram panchayats. So basically, you're going to take up all your waste and going and dumping it some other place. So that is also totally not done and totally not correct. But there it's managed. Here it is not managed. So overall, the problem of waste is going to get worse because we are too many people. Okay, in India with a 1.3 1.4 billion population, it's going to be impossible to manage. If everybody wants to eat a biscuit wrapper and the manufacturers are still going to create multi-layered packets for their biscuits and chips and god knows what, it's going to be difficult. It has to be both way. The government of course have to have its policies, the manufacturers need to make a change in their packaging, and people's habits should change. Only then it's possible, because our country is too huge. There's no comparison with any other country. We can make the conscious choice. So that's what it is. If I can't change 1.3 billion people, it's not, it could be possible, but it's difficult and it will take time. But at least we can touch some thousand people and maybe they can touch other thousand people. So let's at least start this wave, let's start this tsunami of behavior change. And that is only in our hands. Nobody can change our behavior. I believe at that time it was very easy for us because we had seen taking cloth bags.
Right,
But
right.
maybe when you were a child, you always had
We've
plastic
grown up
around
with
you.
plastic everywhere.
Exactly.
Everywhere. We've grown up with not only food items, with every small, even packaging.
Correct.
It's all just plastic. So for our generation, cloth was very rarely seen. That's why
Yeah.
we saw in our EVS textbooks use cloth bags and all. But how many people actually implement that is a big question. So I'm sure there must be numerous benefits of this whole thing that you started. But what is the one advantage or one positive impact that is the closest to your heart?
Yeah, so recharkas, see, the best thing that I like is I definitely have created some people who have now decided to change. Okay. So no matter, even if it's a small drop in the ocean, even sometimes I feel in the village also, whenever I'm in the village, I hear stories of people having brought some change in their life. When they go shopping, they are carrying a cloth bag. So, that impact really means a lot to me. Very, so some of my friends, like one of my friend was recently telling me that for her son's birthday this time, she did not take disposable plates, but she took reusable steel plates. So, these small changes matter a lot.
Could you give some tips on entrepreneurship firstly, and then is there scope for social entrepreneurship in India?
Lots of scope, and I feel every business could be a social business. Every business should think like a sustainable business, even if you are selling medicines or you're selling watches or computers. Think from a circular economic point of view. So if you're selling a laptop, make sure you have a reverse value chain where at the end of its life cycle it's going to be taken care of. If you're selling food products or selling cosmetics, plastic free, make it plastic free, or at least take care of the end of life of the packaging. So I think and make sure that you're also providing benefit to the society. So it should be both ways. So social entrepreneurship has a lot of scope, and every business can be done in that sense. It can be a social enterprise, and I definitely feel that people should get into entrepreneurship. Be persistent, be consistent, because that's the most important thing for entrepreneurship. Everybody doesn't have to start something new. You can also join existing organizations. So I always say, a lot of people are say we want to start something like Recharka in my hometown. So I always say that at this point in time, join us, help us with what we have been doing. So the resources will combine and we'll make a bigger cause. And then we can shift to another place and start at another place. That's very important.
So hearing that there is scope only brings a smile to, I guess, many faces.
Totally, totally. There's lots of scope. Even if you're working, even if you're in a job, like my example, when I was with KPIT Cummins, I had so much scope to bring about a change. If you're into supply chain, design better supply chains. Always think from that point of view. You don't have to, start a business of your own. Whatever you're doing, do it sustainably. That's what I would say. If you're an IT engineer, IT actually is a very good profession to bring in sustainability, because you can develop so much to help other businesses grow better.
Thank you so much for giving us your time.
Jasmine, I'm really happy that you reached out to us. I'm really, really glad. And, through you, we can reach out to many more youngsters who can make this movement. We really want this to become an eco social movement. It's not just about selling products. Selling products will definitely drive the income which the organization needs, but it has to become a larger movement and not just keep it confined to Pune or Mumbai or to India, but also go abroad.